Hello and welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I'm Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and I'm so excited to have in studio with me today Laurie with DORA, Colorado. How you doing?
Good, Alex. How are you?
Good. So we had a little bit of a vacation here. We did some of your best plays the last couple months.
It was great. We all had a bit of a summer break.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, much needed, right?
I mean, we were working hard. Don't get me wrong.
No. Yeah. But everyone had vacations at different times.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. Did you go anywhere exciting this summer?
I didn't. I actually volunteered for a youth camp most of my summer. How about you?
Oh, that's exciting. No, I was here all summer.
It was a working summer, but it was a great summer.
It was. And
Yeah.
I'm not ready for it to be fall quite yet. But alas, we're there.
Here we are.
Well, Laurie is the Director of Communications for DORA, Colorado, and we are talking today about an exciting proposal with Xcel, right? If you want to introduce your guest and what we're talking about.
Yes, thank you, Alex. Well, we like to come on every month to explore different topics related to the different offices, the different divisions that DORA has under its umbrella. There are 10 different regulatory and advocacy divisions under DORA, and the whole purpose is to have conversations with the experts at the agency to demystify the regulatory process or demystify, some of the more kind of public policy or public affairs processes that we have so people understand government just a little bit more, because we know that it can be confusing. So we're very, very happy to have back Cindy Schonhaut. Cindy is the director of the Colorado Office of Consumer Counsel. She's been in the role since 2014. And, the Colorado Office of Consumer Counsel, she'll talk about it a little bit more in terms of their mission. But we call it the small but mighty division under DORA because Cindy works with a staff of 6 to look at and advocate for good utility rates for residential, business, and agricultural consumers. Previously, she was a telecommunications attorney and also a consultant, and has worked on many telecommunications matters. She's appeared before state and federal agencies and legislatures. She testifies before the Public Utilities Commission all the time. She's such an expert. We're so glad to have her here. Thank you so much for coming back, Cindy, and talking to us today.
Thank you so much, Rebecca and Alex. I'm really pleased to be here because I'm kind of following up on what I talked about when I was here in February. So I will get to that, but just very briefly explain a little bit more in depth about who the Office of Consumer Counsel is.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
We represent 3 groups of consumers: residential, small business, and agricultural consumers in electric and natural gas proceedings before the Colorado Public Utilities Commission. We focus on rates and policies and practices of the utilities that impact consumers both in the short term and in the long term. We participate in rate cases, policy proceedings, electric resource planning proceedings in which we present the consumer's viewpoints. And we provide expert analysis and testimony about issues that utilities are raising at the Public Utilities Commission. We were created by the state legislature back in 1984, and we were given the right to participate in utility cases and even sometimes go to the federal level as appropriate, and also we go to court to represent consumers as necessary. We do not get involved in individual consumer complaints, and those are actually handled by the Public Utilities Commission. Just as a little bit of perspective, about 41 states and the District of Columbia have some form of an Office of Consumer Counsel somewhere in a state agency or the legislature or the governor's office. And so we also participate in our National Association of Consumer Advocates, which helps us learn a lot about what cases are happening.
Yeah, so that is an interesting distinction that you bring up, because the Office of Consumer Counsel takes residential consumers as a class versus individual complaints, which a lot of other DORA divisions really focus on, and as a class look at what would be the best way forward and advocates for that in these utility rate proceedings before the PUC. So a really important role because this is the office that is really fighting for good utility rates for consumers and small businesses, as well as agricultural consumers alike. So, Cindy, you mentioned that the OCC considers short-term and long-term impacts on consumers. How do you define that?
For me, I see short-term interests of consumers as rates or prices, or basically, what is my bill going to be for electricity this month? Or even maybe someone might look at this year. But that's really the short-term interest. The long-term consumer interest might involve other matters other than prices and bills, such as the impact of utilities operations on the environment, emissions and pollution, also economic development, impact on jobs, impact on rural communities, if that's appropriate. Mm-hmm. So we have to kind of balance the short and long-term interests.
So what types of cases really come before the PUC that you get involved with?
So the most impactful cases are the rate cases. So the utilities charge the rates they have in place today, which have been approved by the Public Utilities Commission sometime previously. Those rates change only if the utility comes to the commission and asks them to change. And let's be frank, they don't ask for any rate decreases, they want increases. So when those cases are filed, we participate in all those cases. Just as a little bit of background, in this state at least, electric and natural gas companies are regulated as monopolies. So in exchange for being a monopoly and therefore in their territory, they are the only company that is allowed by law to provide electricity there. And in exchange for that, their rates are regulated. Because there's not a competitive market, you don't have your choice of electricity provider. So you really need the government regulators to step in and be sure not only that rates are low and affordable, but also that the electric system is reliable, and that's really important because it's not in consumers' interest to have a financially distressed electric company.
Sure. You want your electric company thinking about its own sustainability.
Yes.
But I should mention that not all the entities in the state are regulated. Right,
That's
the
right.
co-ops and things like that.
Oh, okay.
So-
I don't think I realized that.
Yeah.
So in Colorado, what's known as the investor-owned utilities, which are Xcel Energy, which is also electric and natural gas, and Black Hills Energy, which is also electric and natural gas, those are the two rate-regulated entities. Elsewhere in the state, we have both municipally owned utilities, so like in Colorado Springs, the city owns the electric company. In Fort Collins, the city owns the electric company, and other places. And then in other parts of the state, there are cooperative electric companies. So basically the members, which are the customers, own it. And they elect a board, and that board self-governs, and they're not regulated by the PUC.
But in terms of the regulated utilities, it isn't just rate proceedings that you're involved with. You're also involved with electric resource planning proceedings. Mm-hmm. Can you highlight how that is a function of your office?
Sure. So what electric companies do is look forward. This is under the law. They look ahead 6 to 10 years about what they're going to need in terms of resources to provide electric service. So they start with what they have today, and then they say, what is that going to grow? If the needs or the electric demands on our system going to grow? If so, where? Mm-hmm. So, for example, when there's new development, Sterling Ranch is going to be an example of that. Well, right now there's no electric service out there because there really is like nothing there. But nature.
Right.
Yeah. So,
And Sterling Ranch is the new development that is around Titan Road, Chatfield Reservoir area.
correct. And it's supposedly going to be huge. So there'll be high electric demands from homes, businesses, the pool and the recreations, everything, schools. And so that has to be planned for way in advance, because the construction of both power plants to generate the electricity, those transmission lines you see, those huge tall towers, and also the lines that go down the street or under the ground, those could take 5 years to build at least. So not only do utilities look out 6 to 10 years, but they also look out 20 to 40 years, which takes us into the 2055, it's even hard to say, time period, because these are very extensive facilities that require a lot of construction and a lot of money. So the electric resource planning process basically takes a couple, 3 years at the PUC, and the company comes in and they look forward, what will be our needs in the future? Where are people going to be going? Where are businesses going? Where are businesses leaving? Or reducing their electric usage for whatever reason. Then what happens is that the utility puts out a request for proposals. Hey, this is what we're going to need in the next 6 to 10 years. 8 years is the current number that's out there. And they get bids from independent power producers. And these are companies you might have heard of, Invenergy, who basically supply electricity to the utilities that serve you at home or in your business. So in what most recent important case is Xcel's 2016 electric resource planning, which they went out for requests for proposals, and what they got back was 4 times as many bids from independent power producers than ever before. There were over 400 bids, and many of these bids were for wind or solar generation resources, as opposed to traditional burning coal or burning natural gas to create electricity. The prices for wind and solar generation that were put out by these bidders were so low, they got nationwide attention, because you are seeing a national movement towards renewable energy, and the whole question has been, how much is it going to cost? Because coal has historically been very cheap to burn, but it does pollute, and wind and solar do not pollute, and also they're renewable. So, for example, with coal or even natural gas, at some point there is no more, or you're down to the bottom of the mine, and it's too expensive to get that coal out. So wind and solar obviously renew. And just so you know that, so sun, of course, solar is a daytime thing, but the wind blows mainly at night. Good wind for creating electricity. So and also in Colorado, the best place to put those big wind turbines you see from the highway is the eastern side of the state, the plain side of the state. Somehow, how the wind comes off the mountains, hits there, and creates great electricity.
So why is this type of process planning such a lengthy process? And why is it important for it to be so thoughtful going out, 20 and 50 years?
Well, the main reason is because of the kind of money that's at stake. So in the current Xcel plan, which is called the Colorado Energy Plan, we're talking about $2.5 billion over a long period of time, maybe as long as perhaps 30 years, but that money is going to come from the ratepayers. It's going to come from you on your electric bill, and you can't opt out of that. And so it's the amount of money that's at stake, and also it's the length of time it takes to install and create these facilities.
So just like anything, when you think of something new, sometimes that's at the sacrifice of something else. And that we have read quite a bit about. There's been a lot of media attention regarding Xcel's proposal to retire the 2 coal plants in Pueblo early. How is that involved in the overall discussions that you were part of in the process planning process?
Right.
Process planning process.
I got it. In the process.
Yeah.
So in Xcel's 2016 electric resource plan, they proposed to retire 2 coal plants about 10 years earlier than their normal life.
So I didn't realize you have to propose to retire early.
Yes.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Do you have a reason for that, if you don't mind?
A regulatory reason? It's because because these are monopoly providers, where they get their generation of electricity and how much that costs customers now and over time is a public policy issue.
Okay. Wonderful to know. Thank you.
Right. So Xcel proposed the Colorado Energy Plan to close these 2 coal plants early. They're located in Pueblo, and actually they're called Comanche 1, Comanche 2. There is a Comanche 3 that's much newer, and that is not being proposed to be closed. They're all coal plants. They have been in complete compliance with any regulations from the Environmental Protection Agency about as getting the coal emissions pollution as clean as possible. There are devices and systems that are put on the smokestacks, really, to reduce the pollution, but still coal does create a great deal of pollution. So what Xcel is proposing to do is replace that resource that creates electricity with new renewable energy resources. So wind, solar, and also what has come to be a new source of energy is storage. And the concept of storage is right now, if you think about a battery, your cell phone, whatever you use that has a battery, that actually stores electricity, and then it drains down. On the big scale of, say, storing enough electricity to provide service to, say, Metro State's campus downtown, that's a huge scale of battery size. And it's not necessarily economically efficient right now to store energy that way. It costs too much. But the technology, just like wind and solar, is just bringing the prices down. So that's one of the new things that's coming up is energy storage. And why that's important is because not only does the sun shine during the day, but not at night. And of course, sometimes it doesn't shine at all, a lot in the winter. And also the idea of wind, even though the wind tends to flow best at night, you can't count on that. That's meteorological. It's nature.
And as we all know, the weather guy is always right?
Yeah, exactly. And so you can't count on the wind or the sun.
We count on Alexa these days, I think. Alexa, what's the weather today?
Right. But even if she told you it was going to be windy, it might not be.
Right.
And so having a place for getting all that electricity from the wind at nights when it does blow and being able to store it in any kind of battery or other kind of technology, then you can use it in the morning when the wind isn't blowing and on a snowy day when the sun isn't shining. So,
well, it's right. I mean, you think about it, it's kind of an interesting concept, right? Because coal we know is consistent but finite. Wind is infinite but sporadic, and the sun only shines during certain times. So, but you bring it all together, you have kind of more of a holistic approach, right?
Right. And the thing is, what concerns folks like the Office of Consumer Counsel and others is that the transition from the coal plants of today to these renewable resources is expensive. And this transition is going on really all around the country right now to varying degrees.
So what has been the overall response from the state legislature, from kind of the political side of this topic?
So the state legislature back in 2010 passed what's called the Clean Air, Clean Jobs Act. It was under Governor Ritter. And that actually required the either closing some coal plants back then or reconfiguring them to burn natural gas instead of coal. Natural gas is cheaper because of the fracking technology allows that, and also it pollutes about half as much as coal. And those retrofits and reconfigurations have all basically been done by now. What the citizens of Colorado did in 2004, and we were the very first state in the country to address renewable energy by legislation. And standards were set by the legislature for how much renewable energy these utilities need to use to produce their electricity. And they also gave authority in 2004. It's in the Constitution. We all voted on it. Maybe you don't remember, but it gave authority to the legislature to increase those percentages. So right now, where we are is that Xcel and Black Hills Energy must generate 30% of their power from renewable energy resources. To put that kind of in perspective, the state of Hawaii has a requirement of 100% renewable energy by the year 2045. They're in a very different situation. They don't have any coal there, and they have to buy oil to on the international market, very expensive, but they have a lot of sun.
And a lot of wind.
Yes,
the trade
they do.
winds, yes.
So, and then last summer, in July 2017, Governor Hickenlooper established goals and targets for carbon emission for the state, which he specified in his executive order must be achieved without increasing costs to consumers. And so that's a guidepost for policymakers.
So, just in the last couple minutes, can you summarize, now that we're at this point, and that the PUC has heard done the proceedings to review the proposal, where are things at now?
So a couple of weeks ago, the PUC had public deliberations. There were 3 commissioners, and they deliberated on Xcel's proposal, and they voted to approve it. And just last night, they issued the written order that goes along with that approval. So where we are right now is that in any party that wants to change that outcome, wants to try to persuade the commission, can either ask them to kind of review and reconsider, or they can go to state court and seek a change in the PUC's decision. If we have a moment, I was just going to mention some of the impacts of the decision.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
please do.
Yeah. So for Xcel customers of electricity, we will see in the long run, and these are a lot of years are long run, they will see lower bills for electricity. In addition, Colorado, Southern Colorado, even the nation will experience fewer emissions and therefore less pollution. The fewer coal plants you have, the less pollution you have. And down in Pueblo, the actual plants, they're really located in the city. They're not way out somewhere. And there's a very poor neighborhood adjacent to the coal plants that really suffers the most from any of the emissions. In terms of other impacts on the Pueblo community, there are jobs at stake. The 2 coal plants that would be closed will eventually eliminate 85 jobs. Those jobs are very high-paying jobs, especially for an economically distressed community like Pueblo. They are very highly skilled, highly qualified specialists, and they are part of a union. So one of the things that Xcel has said is they're going to try to mitigate those job losses through the usual ways companies do, through attrition, maybe an early retirement buyout, and getting the employees who would continue, getting them renewable energy jobs. The kicker is that renewable energy jobs might not be in Pueblo, because what happens with building a wind farm or solar array, there's upfront construction jobs, but then once it's working, you don't need a lot of people. In a coal plant, you do. So this is a big concern of the regulators, of course, the county and city of Pueblo, and we're concerned about that as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We do need to wrap up here for
Okay.
our commercial break.
That's fine.
Yes, thank you so much. This has been great information. When do we know that this will be decided upon? Or
So it is decided
it is.
upon.
Okay. Lovely.
As of last night.
As of last night.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Cindy. It's been a pleasure having you on. We'll be right back with Rebecca Laurie talking about the Division of Real Estate. Stay with us. Be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube page while you're here.
Thank you.
Thank you.